Oh, hey, how's it going? Long time no see. Yeah, me? I'm doing good. How you doing? Great, great. Yeah, I mean it's been a while, holidays and all, but yeah, I'm doing real well. Actually, got a new Shadow the Demon Lord campaign up and running, and you want me to tell you about it? Oh, okay. Well, sit down, have a seat, and let me hear your ear because it's going to be a long story. I got lots to talk about since my last video, so let's get right to it. Yeah, new Shadow Demon Lord campaign, first one in over a year, and the reason for that is because I took a break to play D&D. My home group likes to go back to its roots of Dungeons and Dragons periodically, so I had to placate them and get some D&D in, scratch that itch, and now that that's over. Um, we have a new Shadow of the Demon Lord campaign going, so that is what I would like to talk to you about today. So, since the last campaign that I ran, and I've run for this home group, I've run two campaigns. I ran the Tales of the Demon Lord, and I ran an original campaign that I created called The Mother of Monsters, and both of those campaigns were run in Roll20, which I have videos for. But this campaign, I am using Foundry, the virtual tabletop Foundry. And I've talked about that on recent videos as well, but I want to actually jump in and show you my campaign and talk about what the first session was like utilizing this virtual tabletop. So just to kind of show you how to actually get in, this is the Forge. Now, the Forge is actually not Foundry. The Forge is a hosting site, and so you can run Foundry Virtual Tabletop directly from your PC. You can self-host it by having your players dial in. But the problem with that is that it takes a lot of bandwidth, and unfortunately, my internet connection is not that powerful. So I decided instead to go with a hosting platform, an online hosting platform, so that my players would always have access to the campaign and wouldn't be dependent on me, being logged in my computer. And in addition, I can access my game from any computer that I have. I have several. And sometimes I work from my laptop. Sometimes I work from my game computer. Sometimes I work from my work computer. And so I want to be able to access my campaign from whatever computer I happen to be at. And you can't do that if you're keeping your campaign hosted from a specific computer. Unless, of course, you keep that computer up and running all the time, which I don't want to do that. So I have the hosting platform as the Forge. There are several that you can pick, but the Forge is the one I went with, and I like it a lot. It serves my purpose well. From here, you can manage your asset library, which would be your tokens, your battle mats, your artwork, your music. All that stuff is in your asset library, and you can also go to the bazaar and get new modules for your virtual tabletop. Modules for Foundry are ways of adding features to the virtual tabletop that don't come inherent with the virtual tabletop. Now, Foundry is a pretty good, complete virtual tabletop in and of itself, but in order to add more bells and whistles, you can download these modules, and I'll show you some examples of some modules that I downloaded to enhance my game here in a little bit. So at any rate, this is the launch platform, and to get to my campaign, I just go to launch my Foundry. So click that button there, and that takes me to this page. So this page, it has my world description, and it also has when I'm playing next, the date that I'm playing next, my players, my number of players, which actually I only have 4 players. I also have a couple of I have a test token, and I also have I set myself up as a player in order to be able to test some things out as a player. So it says 6 here, but I actually only have 4. Okay, so from here I can launch my game by selecting who I am. I'm the game master, and join the game session. So click that button, and the magic occurs. That's when you are brought into Foundry. and the page that you want to launch will be launched. Now, normally I have it launching to my continent of rule map, and this is where I normally have the player starting off, but it is opening up to the last adventure map that we were on because we didn't finish our last session. And that's kind of a bummer for me because one of the goals that I had set for myself for this campaign is one adventure per session. Keep them short, keep them focused, and my goal is to try to get a full campaign played in 11 sessions. Problem with that is my sessions are only 3 hours long. So I really have to cut out a lot of stuff in order to be able to get a full game experience in, which, exploration, role playing, and combat. To fit all those three things in, I really have to cut out a lot of the fat, and I'm not there yet. I'm used to an adventure taking 2 or 3 game sessions at least, and so that's why I have challenged myself to try to keep myself focused and keep myself on this schedule. But unfortunately, I started off already not being able to do that, and so I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do it. But in my defense, my game sessions are only 3 hours. If I had 4 hours or 5 hours, I could surely do that. But just with 3 hours, it's just not feasible for me to get all that stuff crammed in and still tell a good cohesive story. So I may just have to swallow the fact that I can't do what I want to do and just go from there. But we'll see. I'm still going to try to stick to at least try to do that one adventure per session model to see if I can at least do a couple of the adventures that way. But anyway, back to my current game. So this is the map, the campaign map, and I've updated it with a lot of the major features and cities of the campaign world. The orange line is the Empire's roads that were built over the 900 years that the Empire ruled. And the black line is the railroad system that has built up over the last century, thanks to the efforts of the engineers of Lidge. And so that is the main part of the empire there. And then, of course, up here in the Northern Reach, we also have the beginnings of civilization being established with a road being going from Sixton up to Foundry up here, and then over to Crossings. Those are the major cities on the upper portion of the Northern Reach, and then in the lower portion of the Northern Reach, I haven't quite built that out just yet, simply because I haven't really adventured in there yet. I'm going to add some features probably when I have some time. Because the Empire has built this out as well. Not as much as the upper part, but definitely between Gateway and Landfall, and probably connecting Azul and the freeholds of Nar to some of these coastal cities. There's definitely some roads and some expansion that has occurred there. But anyway, the Shield Mountains also is a barrier that has prevented a whole lot of stuff from happening up here in the Northern Reach, of course, so that's why it's not quite as built out, but you all know that if you know the lore. So at any rate, just wanted to point this out because the starting point for this campaign is the city of Eads, also known as the Dreaming City. And I picked this city in particular because after having read the supplement, it fits perfectly with the campaign concept that I'm using for this campaign, or the shadow that I want to use for this campaign. Now, the shadow that I'm using for this campaign is detailed over here in my journal directory. And the journal directory has my mega campaign folders in here. So these are the different folders that I have planned. The ones that are in black are further out. I haven't really given them a whole lot of thought or put a whole lot of thought to paper, I should say. But the ones that are in color are the ones that I'm on right now, which is the one that I'm doing right now is Dreams of the Dead God, but I also have these three plotted out to a certain degree. So basically, my mega campaign is I am doing a series of campaigns that are all going to be linked together that tell the story of the downfall and the ruination and ultimately the end of days for this universe, the world of Earth, the lands of rule, and the universe that it's in. Eventually, the Demon Lord will come and reclaim it all. It's just a matter of time, and these campaigns will show the decline of the world as the shadows grow darker. The shadow of the Demon Lord grows darker upon the world. And so, like I said, I already had two campaigns, Tales of the Demon Lord and my Mother of Monsters campaign, and they have already left their mark on the world. This filth trail that I have up here, that is actually a trail of shit and piss that was left behind by the destroyer, the demon prince, the destroyer of worlds, which was summoned by the Brotherhood of Shadows in the Tales of the Demon Lord. That's something I added. That's not part of the actual adventure, but I added that piece, and it actually made a river of shit and piss in its trek from where the demon prince was summoned to where it was destroyed, just outside the walls of the city of Crossing. So that's a feature that has now been added to the world permanently. This filth trail is the mark left behind by a demon prince that is not going away anytime soon. The other mark that's left behind, you can't see on the map because that comes in the form of giant monsters that was birthed by the Mother of Monsters, and that was my last Shadow of the Demon Lord campaign for this group. So in that campaign, the Mother of Monsters was giving birth to these giant kaiju-sized monsters that were rampaging through the world, and the player characters had to find the Mother of Monsters and destroy her in order to stop the invasion of the kaiju. By killing the Mother of Monsters, basically they cause the other kaiju, which are dozens, to burrow into the dark places of the world and fall into a deep slumber. And so that is another mark left on the world. There are now kaiju-sized monsters on this world that will pay a visit again at another point in time in a different campaign. So that happened in my last two campaigns. On this campaign, Dreams of the Dead God, I wanted to get into a more horror type campaign. So what I envisioned was a Lovecraftian themed campaign that really focused on scaring the shit out of the players and driving their characters insane. And so Dreams of the Dead God fits that perfectly because essentially, if you read the Dreams of the Dead God, it sounds almost exactly like dead Cthulhu dreaming in his sunken city of Rillier. So that's actually what I decided to do. My boss monster for this campaign, the last encounter is going to be with Cthulhu. Now, of course, I'm not calling him Cthulhu in this adventure because that would take them out of, I think, immersion of this game world. In this game world, he is known by different names, and which I'll get to here shortly. But yeah, it's going to be Cthulhu. So when we get to that part, they will be confronting Cthulhu, and we'll see how they manage to deal with that. All right, so what needs to happen now is getting this campaign started because I've been planning it for a while, and I think I did a really good job of outlining the campaign, where I wanted to go, and all the steps that I wanted to go through in order to get to where I wanted to go. This is actually the most thorough outline that I've done for a campaign. Normally, I outline from level 0 to 10 the things that I want to happen, and at a pretty high level, because you have to have some flexibility, because player characters never do what you expect them to do, so they'll take you off on a tangent that you really didn't even anticipate. And so you have to be flexible enough to kind of roll with those punches. But for this campaign, I have actually plotted out all 11 sessions, or all 11 chapters. And there's actually 12 chapters, because I had 2 session zeros. And the reason for that is because the first session 0 actually was a few months ago. And what I did, this was when we were having our hiatus, a couple weeks hiatus from Dungeons and Dragons. I wanted to introduce them to Foundry, and I wanted to introduce them to my next campaign, which I was going to play after our D&D campaign. And so I had kind of a session 0 at that point, but it ended up that we played for several more months of D&D. So I never actually used those characters. Actually, I used one of those characters from that original session 0, ported over into my current campaign, but the rest did not. So that was kind of like a standalone session 0, but it still played into this campaign. And so I actually kind of have 12 adventures written out. So the first couple, Trouble at Mill and Thriller Night, were played over 2 separate sessions. Thriller Night we played a couple of weeks ago, and that was the introduction to, the reintroduction to Foundry, getting the characters all rolled up and fleshed out, and then actually getting started in the adventure. It was really super short, and I was able to get that one done in 1 session, simply because it was just 1 encounter, and I only had like 45 minutes to get it done in, and so I had to cut out a couple of monsters from that encounter. But at any rate, last week, or this last Tuesday, was session 1. And this was the first full session that we played our full 3 hours completely playing the game. And for this session, we played through the adventure that I entitled The Horror in the Cellar. And so in order to understand the adventures, you have to understand the background of what's happened prior to the campaign starting, and how things got to be how they are in the city of Eads. So I have my GM's campaign summary up here. These are the notes. This is a storyline that describes what has happened, that has launched this campaign, and the need for heroes to stop the villains from accomplishing what they want to accomplish. So after I decided on the shadow for this campaign, I had to decide on the villains. And so the villains had to be somebody associated with it had to be somebody, a group that I could use to associate with the Cthulhu mythos. And so if you know anything about the Cthulhu mythos, you know that there's lots of aspects to it, but one of the aspects is that there is a separate dimension called the Dreamlands. And a lot of things happen in the Dreamlands that can affect the real world, and can spill over into the real world. So I wanted that to be included in this campaign, because the campaign is about the dreams of a dead god affecting the real world. And so the dead god being Cthulhu dreaming, and those dreams starting to affect the real world, especially as he starts waking up. And so I needed a group to facilitate Cthulhu waking up. So how do I do that? Well, I read through a bunch of the supplements that talk about different power groups and different things, and I settled on the Sisters of the Blue Hand. That is a group that is described in this supplement, which is Hunger in the Void, and they get about a page and a half, a little bit more than a page and a half of description. It doesn't fit perfectly with what I wanted to do, but that's okay, because I can modify it to the degree that I need to. But basically, this organization venerates an entity that they call the Lady of Sighs. And so what so let me see if I can give you a little bit of background of the sisters without going through a whole lot of details here. So the Sisters of the Blue Hand started as worshippers of Maiden in the Moon, but they located a temple to the elder gods, and this is my branching off of the actual Sisters of the Blue Hand story. But in my world, in my campaign world, they accidentally found an island that had a temple dedicated to the elder gods, primarily Cthulhu, but then it also had a ring of the different elder gods as well. And so when they found this, they also found growing on this island a black lotus blossom. And from this black lotus blossom dripped a black liquid that they call the nectar of the Night Maiden. And when this nectar is absorbed, and it can be drunk, whatever, they can imbibe it, or it can be absorbed through the skin. Regardless of which way they take it, it turns your hands blue, hence the name Sisters of the Blue Hand, and it turns their lips blue, I think. And it causes them to have very lucid dreaming of this dream world, the Dreamlands, and this entity that is speaking to them through this dream world. And this entity was introduced to them as the Lady of Sighs, which is actually Cthulhu. Now, the way this works is this is really just an avatar of Cthulhu that, through the filter of the Dreamlands, the collective psyches of the sisterhood, the only thing they could handle was something that their minds could comprehend. And their minds not only wanted to comprehend, but visualized a goddess of great power, similar to the one that they had been venerating, but I guess they had kind of lost their way with, the Maiden in the Moon. They wanted a replacement goddess, so that is what their minds allowed them to see. Great Cthulhu, filtered through the Dreamlands, became the Lady of Sighs to them. And so the Lady of Sighs gave them a mission to bring her out of her slumber so that she can remake the universe in her image. And so the Sisterhood of the Blue Hand started up at this point, and they have since been trying to figure out how to make this happen. Now, in order to make this happen, the Lady of Sighs said that she feeds upon the dreams of the faithful. And so they had to figure out a way to get a large population of people feeding the Dreamlands with their lucid dreaming and focus that energy to the Lady of Sighs. So, most people in the world go to sleep and they dream and they feed their psychic energy into the Dreamlands anyway. But what they needed to have happen is just a constant influx of dreams happening, 24/7. And in order to do that, they needed to get a large population dreaming, for long periods of time. So in order to do that, they decided to become drug dealers. And the reason for that is because there is a drug that facilitates a dream state, and that is the lotus blossom. Normal lotus, not the black lotus that they found, but the normal lotus blossom facilitates lucid dreaming for the people that get hooked on this drug. But the problem is the lotus blossom doesn't grow naturally on the continent of Rule. But the Sisterhood was able to locate a series of islands where it does grow. And so even though the lotus blossom was a known drug in Rule, it was not a readily available one because of its rarity. In fact, it was kind of like a drug that the rich and powerful would be able to partake in every once in a great while when it became available to them through their great resources. Now that the sisterhood found a plentiful source of these blossoms from these islands that they found out in the Auroral Ocean, they needed to find a way to distribute that to a large population. So first of all, they needed to pick a city, and the city that they chose was a logical choice, the city of Eads, because the city of Eads has always had a drug problem. It is a city where artisans, artists, musicians, people of a creative nature have been drawn to the city of Eads, and with that with that influx of creativity and creative passions, also came the recreational use of drugs to help expand the mind and to facilitate creativity. And so it was already a haven for drugs. But, these were recreational drugs. They weren't drugs that were causing a whole lot of problem in the city of Eads. In fact, they were legalized by the autarch of the city because it was kind of like a tourist attraction. This is where you come to if you want to get high and have fun. So Eads was that type of city. Knowing this, the Sisters of the Blue Hand knew that it would be fairly easy for them to introduce a new drug and have it spread like wildfire through the city. So they hired a couple of mercenary groups, some pirates on the one hand, to be able to go out to the islands, get a crop of lotus blossoms and ship them into Eads. And then they needed a distributor in Eads to get the drugs prepared and get them out on the street and sell them and distribute them. And so in order to get the drugs distributed, they needed somebody in the city of Eads to do that. They found that group who were already dealing drugs as the Goblin clan known as the Scummers. Now, the Goblin clan Scummers have been working in Eads for years, and they are headquartered in the sewers. They actually work for an offshoot of the Goblins, which are known as the what are they known as? The wait for it, Filth Goblins. Okay, so the boss of all the goblins working out of Eads is a filth mother that has a headquarters in the sewers of Eads, and she's the one that's pretty much calling all the shots as far as the drug trade goes in Eads. Now, she's approached by the Sisterhood in order to help, get this new drug distributed, and the filth mother, agreed to it. But in order for them to be able to distribute the drugs, they had to take care of a couple of problems. The first problem is the law and order of Eads. The Lamplighter organization had to be disbanded because there's no way that they could mass distribute this drug with the Lamplighters out there arresting their drug dealers. Because as a new unauthorized drug, they would be. So, especially causing the issues that it would cause. So, that's problem number one. Problem number two is they had to deal with the Church of the New God that had a powerful influence in the city. Out of the Church of out of the St. Timothy's Cathedral. So those are two problems that they had to deal with. So they needed somebody inside the government of the city of Eads in order to make those things happen. So they planted one of their sisters into the city, and she quickly introduced herself to the autarch, Martonius, the autarch of Eads, and became his mistress. She seduced him rather quickly because that wasn't difficult to do. And she had an affair with him for several weeks. And while she was doing it, he arranged to have his wife meet a tragic and unforeseen death. And so once she was out of the way, this sister, whose name is Erin Beatra, managed to convince the autarch to marry her to become the new lady, the new first lady of Eads. And so when that happened, she was able to then get the autarch under her influence by getting him hooked on the lotus petal. So he's pretty much he's hooked on lotus petal, locked up in a dark room somewhere, having his lucid dreaming, and so now she is running the city from behind the scenes. She, of course, says that the autarch is still managing things, that he's just fallen ill or whatever, but she's actually the one calling the shots. While she is in charge, she manages to bribe the majority of the lamplighters to do her bidding. The ones that wouldn't do her bidding, she forced to resign or quit, or they met untimely deaths. And then the handful or so that are still loyal to the laws of Eads, they still remain as lamplighters, but she is actively harassing them through the other lamplighters in order to get them to resign or to have them meet untimely deaths as well. All right, so that's the first threat. The second threat is the city or the cathedral. So she had to find a way to get rid of the cathedral, but that couldn't happen until the drugs started to be circulated. So the circulation of drugs started to occur, and it spread like wildfire through the city. And people were under the influence rapidly. The dream merchants came out, were operating openly because the lamplighters were leaving them alone. And so within a very short period of time, almost half of the population of Eads was under the influence of the dream merchants. And so once that occurred, then Lady Beatra had really just kind of a personal army that she could influence to take care of the cathedral. Now, of course, the high priest of the cathedral was, concerned with what was happening in the town. He was petitioning for an audience with the autarch, but was being put off by the Lady Beatra. And so he was reaching out to the kingdom of God for backup to try to get some assistance to help rid the city of these dream merchants. But timing was bad for the church and good for Lady Beatra, because the orcs of the empire, as you know, the orcs have taken over the empire, and there's now an orc emperor, Drudge, who killed the human emperor and is now ruling the empire. Well, they have been putting pressure on the kingdom of God and have now declared war on the kingdom of God. So the kingdom of God no longer has the resources to divert to a place like Eads, because they're being attacked on their borders by the orc armies of the emperor. So all of the attention is on of the kingdom of God is on their own borders, and so the high priest of Eads is pretty much left to his own devices without any backup coming. So he's doing what he can to try to get an audience with the autarch, unable to, and then that's when the night of horror occurs. Lady Beatra is able to magically implant this suggestion in the dreamscape of the people that are sleeping due to, or that are lucid dreaming due to the lotus blossom. And there is a threat that she interjects into the dream that incites these, what they're called, the collective term for the people strung out on the lotus blossom is the dream lost. So she incites the dream lost into this sleepwalking mob that attack St. Timothy's Cathedral with the help of the lamplighters and the dream merchants, and they raze it to the ground, basically. They burn the place, they drag out the acolytes and the high priest and behead them and torture them and put their heads on spikes outside the cathedral, and they basically just destroy the cathedral. So that takes care of the two major problems that the Sisters of the Blue Hand have in Eads. So now they await a sign that their work is having the desired effect, and the sign comes fairly quickly after the the cathedral is destroyed. There is a morning when this psychic, what I'm going to describe as a psychic transmission occurs, and it affects those people who are psychically well endowed, to borrow a term from the movie The Shadow. So people who are sensitive to these sorts of things, all of a sudden just start, their eyes glaze over or they roll up and just their whites are showing. And they just start reciting this alien language that they don't know, that nobody knows actually, over and over again for like a minute. And then they return to normal with no memory of what just happened. But everybody else that's not psychically well endowed are like freaking out by what these people are doing. And afterwards, they have no idea what just happened. But the Sisterhood of the Blue Hand knows exactly what happened. That was a sign from the Lady of Sighs that she is beginning to awaken. And that was the first sign. And then as she awakens and grows in power, more things will start happening to show the Sisterhood and the rest of the world, actually, that reality is being reformed. So that was the first incident. And now little things are happening here and there that are weird and have no explanation, not caused by magic, that are further signs that the Lady of Sighs is awakening, or Cthulhu. So that is also where the campaign kicks off. That was my first session 0, was that psychic transmission occurring. And affecting a suburb of Eads. But for this actual proper campaign, that is the thing that launched the campaign. Now, with that happening, the remaining power groups that can oppose the Sisterhood and the Dream Merchants are a group of people who are not addicted to the Lotus Blossom, who call themselves the Awakened. And these are basically citizens of Eads that have come together to try to get the autarch to do something about the problem of the Dream Merchants and the Lamplighters not doing their jobs. And so the Awakened have been petitioning to try to get the autarch to show himself, to explain why he's allowing all this stuff to happen. But of course, they've been put off by Lady Beatra. So that's a growing threat that Beatra is going to have to address. Another threat is the Lyceum. The Lyceum is the University of Eads, which was a big and powerful university, a seat of learning, a powerful seat of learning throughout the empire. And it was one of the larger, more powerful universities. Lots of people got their degrees from the Lyceum and went on to do great things in the empire. But the Lyceum has also been hit hard by the epidemic, as with half the people in the city being addicted to lotus petals. That affected their enrollments, and it also affected their class attendance. Half their students are gone. They're not getting new enrollments. So the Lyceum is also struggling with the same issues that the rest of the town is struggling with. And so the faculty of the Lyceum, a powerful group in and of themselves, they are also trying to determine what is causing this and what can be done to stop it. So they've also petitioned the autarch, have also been put off by Lady Beatra, and is also a growing threat that she is going to have to deal with. And so, getting nowhere on their own, the headmaster of the Lyceum decided to try to partner with Awakened and to form a combined organization that would force the autarch to address the drug issue. And so the headmaster of the Lyceum, Professor Abraxas, and the handful of remaining teachers have a meeting with the Awakened, and they invite a few other people from their staff as well as a student that they trusted enough to help them with this effort. And this is how the PCs get involved in the campaign. They are either working for the Lyceum or they are a student. And so they're invited to this meeting, and during this meeting, they discuss what the problem is, and they discuss having to find the source of the drugs and put an end to it. If the autarch isn't going to do it, they have to take matters in their own hands. And so they have to find the secret headquarters of the Dream Merchants. In order to do that, they need to go into the sewers, and the sewers there are miles of sewers under Eads. They are infested with monsters, and they're trapped by the goblins that live down there. So they can't just wander around the sewers, because they are already few in number, and they can't afford to lose people to these monsters and to these traps. So they have to figure out and find out where the secret headquarters is of the Dream Merchants in order to cut off the head of the snake and put a stop to the drug trade. So the headmaster gives the player characters a mission, and that mission is to go to an alchemist that they know have been helping the Dream Merchants activate the lotus drug from the shipment of petals, or shipment of lotus flowers that have been coming in. They've been using a couple of different alchemists to help get the drug, or get the lotus petals processed to the point where the drug is active and can be sold to its users. That requires an alchemist to do that. And so one of these alchemists is a woman whose name is Emma, and she runs a shop here in town. So the headmaster gives them a mission to go talk to her. And so the PCs accept the mission, and they leave the gates of the Lyceum. But once they leave the Lyceum gates, they are immediately followed by a couple of crooked lamplighters. And the crooked lamplighters have been following pretty much anybody that's coming out of the Lyceum, because they've been told to keep an eye on the Lyceum and watch for any dissent being stirred up, or anything suspicious happening. So they're pretty much following anybody that comes out of Lyceum. And so they follow this group of 4 suspicious people that just marched out of the gates. And the PCs notice that these crooked lamplighters are following them. So they try to ditch them, but they are unable to. And they eventually turn around and confront them, which was not really the best idea, because 2 of these PCs already had a background that they were wanted by the lamplighters. And so when they confronted the 2 lamplighters, there was already friction between them. The lamplighters, of course, they denied following them, but with them starting to get snippy, they threatened to arrest them. So there was going to be a fight break out, but then another lamplighter appeared and said that the captain, who's also crooked, was ordering all lamplighters to the front gate because there was a problem that needed to be addressed. And so this lamplighter was going around finding the other lamplighters and ordering them to the front gate. And so the 2 that were harassing the player characters, they turn around and head off to the front gate, promising that this wasn't over. And then the lamplighter that had provided the diversion tells the PCs to scatter, that these 2 were up to no good, and they were probably going to arrest them and put them in the Tower of Sorrows. Tower of Sorrows is the jail for the city of Eads. And so the PCs now learn that not all of the lamplighters are crooked, that there is one at least that is still honoring the laws of the town. And so they take the opportunity to escape into the fog and head over to the alchemist shop. Now, before they get to the alchemist shop, during this confrontation with the lamplighters, one of the PCs the goblin known as Dirte, um, he his attention is kind of drawn into a nearby alley. And while the lamplighters are talking to the PCs and having this confrontation, he notices that this alley is full of cats. And the cats are just kind of meandering around, sifting through dirt and trash and, doing what wild cats do. But then he noticed that all the cats stopped doing what they were doing and looked at him all simultaneously. And their eyes started glowing a weird blue color. And then they all lined up in a single file and began marching towards him, but then diverted and marched towards a wall and then marched up the wall and disappeared into this fog bank that was drifting over that building. And so this was weird. And the goblin actually is addicted to drugs because that was his background that he had rolled. And so he was actually addicted to the lotus petals himself. And during one of his lucid dreams, he had learned that, or he had seen a scene similar to this where there were cats, and the cats were climbing up to meet the Lady of Sighs. Only the goblin doesn't know about the Lady of Sighs. He just witnesses, an entity that these cats are climbing up towards heaven to be with. And so this was kind of a connection between the dreamland and the dream that he had. And it was another indication that something weird is happening in the world. So that happened. And he tried to talk to the PCs, did you see that? Did you see that? And they're like, what? Because they were all paying attention to the lamplighters harassing them. So anyway, that little side thing occurred. And then so the PCs head off to where the alchemist shop is. Now the alchemist shop is in a different part of Eads, and I knew this was going to be a potential combat encounter, so I created a map, and there are drug addicts sprawled out throughout the map, and I had the players come in over here, and once they came on the map, they heard a lady scream from this direction. So of course they wanted to see what the scream was, but they also knew that the alchemist shop was in that direction. So they headed down this alley, and they got to here when they noticed something was going on. Now, a couple things I want to point out. First of all, Dirte, the goblin, he was lagging behind. And when he was lagging behind, he actually, this guy right here called out to him and said, "Hey, buddy, you got a lotus petal that you can hit a brother up with?" And, basically begging for a hit of drugs. And so, Dirte was like, no. And so this guy was like, "Hey, have you seen the cats yet?" And so that let Dirte know that this was actually something that others have witnessed and not just him, because this drug dealer or this drug addict was also seeing the weird cat thing that Dirte was seeing. And so after that, Dirte kind of caught up with the rest of the players and rest of the characters. And right here is something that I put on the map that I want to point out because it's a cool feature. And this is one of the modules that you can add to Foundry as an enhancement. And I think it's called Wait a minute, or Wait here, or Wait stop, or Stop wait, or something like that. Anyway, it allows you to draw an area on the map where if a token steps onto that defined area, and the defined area is the area that I have showing right here. If a token walks onto that spot, that token is immediately drawn in to that spot. And see, I'm trying to get it to activate. Well, it's already been activated once, so I don't think it's activating again. But basically what happened is it draws your token into that spot and it pauses the game. And this allows the game master to set the scene for the encounter. and it pauses the game. When you pause a game in Foundry, that means that none of the players can move their tokens around. So these guys are stuck where they're at. The player that tripped the scene activation, he's stuck where he's at because the game is paused. And until I unpause the game, nobody can do anything except for listen to me. And so I described the scene as a lamplighter, a crooked lamplighter, and two goblins harassing this woman. And the woman that they're harassing happens to be the alchemist that they came here to talk to. And so that allowed me to set up the scene. That allowed for some parlay to occur. Of course, the goblins and the lamplighter weren't going to take shit from the player, from the characters, and so they attack. They initiate the encounter. So I start up the combat encounter and unpause the game. At that point, they play through, and one of the goblins escape. The lamplighter's killed, and the other goblin is killed as well. So that encounter occurred, and the players then can speak to the alchemist, who's freaked out because they just killed a lamplighter in front of her shop, and so now she's afraid the lamplighters are going to come down on her or the dream merchants because they also killed a goblin, and one of the goblins escaped. But the PCs take the bodies and put them under a pile of garbage, hide them under a pile of garbage out here, and strip down the bodies so that they can't be quickly identified. And so they go into the alchemist shop, reassure her that they've taken care of the bodies and that there's nothing to implicate her that she did anything wrong. So she tells them that these guys were harassing her to go do another shipment of lotus petals. She didn't want to, but they're basically forcing her to. And so, she's not under the employment of the lamplighters or the dream merchants, but she is being forced to do their bidding. And so the characters ask her for the address that where she goes to in order to do the purification, and she gives it to them. And so they take that information back to the headmaster. Now, the headmaster has since gotten information that this latest shipment that came in last night, and it came in on a ship where most of the crew had killed each other in fits of madness, but a few of the sailors had escaped into the fog with the captain's journal and with a weird artifact that was glowing. And so the headmaster wants that captain's journal and wants to know what that artifact is as well, thinking that it might be linked to whatever weirdness is happening here, because he also is aware of the weirdness thanks to that telepathic communication that had occurred. And he was actually able to decipher the telepathic communication to mean he is coming. So he knows that for a full minute solid, people were speaking this alien language, essentially announcing that some entity is coming. And he doesn't know what that entity is. He doesn't know where that psychic message came from. So he's looking for knowledge, and he thinks that there's some answers may be found in the captain's log. He's already had the ship searched by the Wakened, and they didn't find anything other than dead bodies and that nothing there other than the fact that they all killed each other in fits of madness helped to shed any light on what's going on. So he sends the PCs to this address to hopefully find not only the some goblins that they can question, but perhaps even information as to where the sailors went to with the captain's journal and with the artifact. So the next day they head off to the house that is the address that they were given. And when they get there, they see a dilapidated house, a dilapidated 2-story house that has a couple of guards, a goblin guard in front and a goblin guard in the back. They get rid of the goblin guard in the front, and they try to sneak into the house through the second story window. But part of the weirdness that's happening in the world is the second story of this house, for whatever reason, no longer exists in this plane of existence. And so when they try to enter through the windows over here and over here, the person that tried to enter, which was Dirte the Goblin, he disappeared and reappeared at the front step. That also happened when they tried to go up the steps to the second floor, because at this point now they were thinking something weird's happening on the second floor. We need to investigate. But when they tried to enter the second floor from the stairway, they again reappeared at the front step. Now, one thing I want to show you real quick is how I made that happen. I made that happen by another module that I had loaded to my virtual tabletop. And it's a teleport module, which you can set parameters to have when anybody steps in a certain square, that their token is teleported from that square to another square that you predefine. So I predefined this square to teleport to this square. So when they climbed the stairs, they got to the top of the second floor landing. They opened the door and saw the second floor open up before them. But when they tried to step out onto it, they disappear and reappear at the front door again. So whatever they try to do to get on the second floor, they can't do it because they reappear at the front door. So you saw how that happened. The token went through, stepped on that square right there, and reappeared here. Super cool feature in Foundry. I love it. And I'm going to be using that frequently. In fact, I have another teleport set up here so that when they step on to the square right here, it will actually teleport them to a different map, which I'll show you here in a moment. But, they kind of search a couple of the rooms in the house. They missed the rat swarm over here. But then they found these steps to go down the basement. And they knew that the lab was in the basement. So they start to head down the basement stairs. But we had to stop the game there because the game session had ended. And so we'll pick it up again next week. But when they start next week, what will happen is they will... they will find, whoops, he's already in there. They will find that I'm sorry, I'm trying to figure out what I'm trying to say here. Okay, so what happens next week is they go down the stairs, and when they step on that square right there, their player or their character disappears from this map, and they reappear on the next map. So the next map being the stairs down to the basement. So when you go in here, you can see that token is already standing on the stairs of this basement because that's where I had assigned the square to be the point where they appear. Super cool. I love it. I love the teleport feature. So unfortunately, it doesn't go back the other way. So I have to get rid of that token and put him back here where he was before. So that doesn't throw off the players next week. All right, so that is basically the end of that session. So what I managed to accomplish in this session is that there's some weird things happening. There is a group, an organized group that's trying to figure out what's happening, and they know the bad guys that are the dream merchants, but they also know that there's a group that is working behind the scenes, manipulating things. They have some suspicions that it could be a cult. One of the player characters is actually affiliated with the Sisters of the Blue Hands in their background, Sisters of the Blue Hand in their background. So they kind of suspect that it might be them, but it could also be the Brotherhood of Shadows, who's already caused trouble in other parts of the campaign and other campaigns as well. So there's a mystery to solve, and they are aware of the beginnings of this mystery. So that takes me to the end of this campaign and to the end of this session. So just wanted to throw this video out there after my long hiatus and get my videos going again, starting with this campaign diary, showing you what my campaign world looks like here in my new tabletop and some of the bells and whistles that I've been using for the first session. Okay, so anyway, close that out now. And I think that's it. So I want to thank you all for watching this video once again. I do these only to try to bring attention to this game, Shadow of the Demon Lord, that I love. And nobody else is doing these types of videos for Shadow of the Demon Lord, so I take it upon myself to do it, even though I kind of suck. And I just need for these videos to be watched and for the word to be spread. So that's where I need you guys to watch the video, like the video to increase its visibility in YouTube. And if you want to talk about it, if you want to chit chat in the comment section, leave a comment, and I'll be happy to discuss this campaign or just the game in general. So with that being said, let me go ahead and close this video out with a hearty hail to the Demon Lord himself, Rob Schwab, for creating a fabulous game for us. And thank my fellow cultists for watching, and I will catch you next time. Later.